If I had $1 for every time I heard an author complain about, why can't we just write? Why do we have to do all this other stuff? I wouldn't have to do this. But that's not the case. And the thing is, I feel them. Why can't we just write? It would be wonderful to just write your books and set them loose in the universe and not have to worry about anything else. But if you're a one-man operation, that's just not going to work. So let's talk about it today on the Ronin Author. Hi, welcome to the Ronin Author. I'm your host, Ryan McGinnis. I'm the owner of S&D Designs, the owner of 217 Press, and a self-published author on Amazon. So I created this podcast not to be a guru, not to give advice, because I'm not an expert. I'm relatively young in my self-published author career. I've got 5 books out on Amazon, and I created this podcast pretty much to act as a support group for self-published authors, because we all walk, this is a pretty lonely profession where you spend hours just sitting in your office, like cramming over your keyboard or doing social media or all that stuff. And I wanted this to be a support group for self-published authors, and I also wanted to share my experiences that I've learned while I'm making my books and creating my books, and and stuff that I found on my author journey. And we've got the motto: no gods, no masters, no gurus. And that's the Ronin way. That's the Ronin Author way. So, but talking about it and getting into our subject for today, why can't we just write? I've heard it a million times from a million authors. Why can't we just write? Why do I have to write, and then I have to work on the cover, and then I have to go on social media and market the book? Why do I have to wear all these hats? And the thing is, I feel them. It's a difficult thing, and you end up having to wear a lot of hats or juggle a lot of plates or whatever metaphor you want to use for it. It's not easy. Being a self-published author is not easy, but the thing is, unless you're independently wealthy, which most of us are not, you're going to have to learn to do some of it. You're going to have to learn to handle all aspects of your business to the best of your abilities. And some of us are going to be better at some things than others, but you've got to, unless you've got an unlimited amount of money to pay a bunch of people to do it, you're going to have to do some work. I can 100% guarantee you, I saw somebody ask one time, why can't I just write my book, slap a cover on it, and put it on Amazon, and then people will just find it? Well, that's cool, but that's not a business plan. And if you're going to be a self-published author nowadays, you need to have some kind of business sense, because putting your book out there, just throwing it on Amazon and letting it float around out there, that's not a business plan. And I can almost guarantee you, if you just put your book out there with no marketing and no social media and no hype and nothing, you're going to get like 0 sales. There might be a few people wander along and find your book, but you're not going to reach the people that you've always wanted to reach. But the thing is, like I said, you need to, accept the fact that this is a business, and you need to, do what you have to do to get your book out to the best of your abilities. Diversification is the name of the game. Diversification is what I feel like is an essential skill, not just as an author, but if you're going to run your own business. I'm running 2 businesses plus my author business right now. And how do I do it? Well, the big secret is I have no free time. And I occasionally hate my life, there's never enough time, we got home from dinner last night. We went and got sushi. It was sushi night, and we came home and my wife was going to read. And so I decided I was going to go write. I was going to work on my novel, because you got to work things in when you find the time, right? And so I went in the other room and I started working on a chapter, and I got probably 300 words into it, and a migraine struck. So I unfortunately get migraines, and a lot of writers do. Maybe it's the eye strain, maybe it's the, all the thinking, I don't know. But I tend to get aural migraines. I don't know if any of you guys have seen those, where you get the color swirls before your eyes and you can't see. And so, 300 words into my new chapter, I had to pull out because Even though I was on a roll, I felt like what I was writing was good, but all of a sudden my eyes, started screwing up and I couldn't see what was on the page. And it was very frustrating, but that's another story. That laid me low. I didn't get to finish writing. Maybe I'll get to finish writing tonight. Who knows? But the thing is, you have to delegate your time. And I kind of learned this a long time ago, long time ago, probably 17 years ago now. I started the business that would end up becoming S&D Designs, which is my main business. S&D Designs, I build websites, I do online marketing, I do social media marketing, I do some graphic design, I do some videos, I do whatever I need to do to help my clients. And it wasn't always like that though. When I started S&D, all I really wanted to do was make websites. That's it. I just wanted to make websites. I didn't want to do graphic design. I didn't want to do marketing. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to build websites. But what I quickly found as I, I studied how to build websites, but I wasn't like a business major or anything, and I haven't went to college for business management or anything, so I had no idea what I was doing. I just jumped headfirst into it and was like, well, let's see what we can do, and let's build websites. And what I quickly found was I could build websites for people, but a lot of the people that came to me for websites also needed a logo, or they needed business cards, or they needed a flyer, a brochure, they needed all kinds of stuff. And so what I learned was I just had to be diverse. I just had to accept that I was going to have to do all these different things, and I couldn't just be this one thing. I couldn't just be the all-encompassing, like I just build the websites. Everybody else does everything else because I'm leaving money on the table. And it was just easier that way. And have I hired people over the years? Yeah, there's been times when I've had a lot of work, and a lot of work means a lot of money, and so I can delegate some of it out to freelancers who are friends of mine. But a lot of times I do everything myself, and that's kind of where you are with, if you're a self-published author, because I assume most of you guys don't get, a small business loan to do your books, right? I didn't either. I started reading a bunch of books. It was during the pandemic. I finished my first novel during the pandemic and decided not to release it yet because I figured it would get overshadowed by all the chaos going on. And that might have been a mistake. It might not have been. Who knows? But what I did do was I spent a year fine-tuning my craft and learning about covers. I was going to get somebody to do the cover. It didn't work out. I ended up doing the cover myself, and the first cover was okay, but I've improved upon it 4 times since then. That's another fun thing about being a self-published author, is that you can, nothing's ever finished. If somebody writes you and says, hey, I found a typo in chapter 13, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? I'll just fix that typo and then re-upload the manuscript and done. But I spent a year learning and researching and trying to learn as much as I could. And then I released the book in 2021, the first book, Tears of the Dragon, and I just jumped right into it. And I quickly found that, I had to learn book marketing, which is different than marketing businesses. Had to learn Amazon ads. I've had to learn quite a bit of things and here and there. And I'm good at some of them. I'm not so good at others. Covers I have greatly improved because my graphic design skills. And I think the thing is, I've done book covers. I had done book covers for clients. That's one of the things when I talked about diversifying with S&D Designs. I've done book covers for nonfiction books. Fiction books are a whole different animal, and so I've had to learn. But I think 5 books into it now, I've gotten to where I can do a cover. I can do a pretty decent cover. But you have to figure out what you're good at. Like if ads don't make sense to you at all, if you just cannot get your head wrapped around ads or how to do ads or whatever, you don't feel comfortable, that is completely fine. Just realize that if you can't do it, you're either going to have to make up for it by not doing ads. You're going to have to really lean into your organic side of social media and marketing. And I've got my own opinions about that, which I'll share in a future podcast. Or you're going to have to pay somebody to do it. You're going to have to hire somebody to do it, which means spending money. And that's usually how it goes. You can either put the sweat equity into it, like you're going to pay for it either way. You're either going to pay for it by having to give your time and your effort, or you're going to pay for it by spending money on it. And so that's what you got to look at. I mean, if you suck at doing covers, use Canva. go on Canva. Canva's got templates for book covers, and you can make those work. You can edit them. You can change a few things, and you can come up with a passable cover like that. You can always hire a designer on Fiverr. A cheap cover designer on Fiverr, and I know some people who have worked with that and have had no problems. I will say, depending on how you do it, book covers can get very expensive, depending on who you're getting to do it and what you're willing to put into it. I mean, or you can just learn to do it yourself. So yeah, it just all depends. And because of all this, because of all the juggling, and I did want to mention this isn't my main point today at all, but I did want to mention that I do understand. I think this pressure to do stuff, and especially when you're trying to do it all yourself, I think this is why people lean so hard on AI. And I know a lot of people out there are really anti-AI, and if you're watching this, you're anti-AI, you're already like, boo. But I get it. I personally, like AI will save you a ton of time, and it's super easy. But I'm not here to pass judgment on it. I'm not here. People are going to do what they have to do. I will say for myself, I understand the reasoning, but I myself don't use AI for any of the creative stuff. I will use AI for research. I will use it for like, go online and tell me the top 10 blah, 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 or go online and tell me, different ways you could do blah, blah, blah. Because as an author, you do like shit tons of research, but I would never use it for covers. I would never use it for artwork. I would never use it for creative writing, because that's why I do stuff. I do stuff because I find the creative side of it very fun. And I think I want AI to do the boring stuff. Let it do the boring stuff that I don't want to do, and that way I can do the cool stuff. I think we've gotten it really backwards, but that's, I'll save that for another time. Now I'll merely say, if you're a self-published author, you really have to, there's no way you can just write unless you're willing to pay other people to do the work. Otherwise, you got to do research. You got to do it the best you can. And if you can't do everything, then don't. I've said that on here before. If there's like 15 social media networks and you don't have time to do all that social media marketing, don't. Like, maybe pick like 1 or 2 social networks that you understand that click for you and use those. If you don't want to use social networking at all, don't. But realize you're going to have to find ways to reach people. Because that's what it's all about. You have to get your book in front of people. And you can't do everything. Just realize that. Do everything you can to the best of your abilities, and just realize everything's a work in progress. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just remember that. And that's all I've got for you for now. I will probably talk about this subject again in the future. But if you enjoyed this video, give me a like or subscribe. Maybe hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when I put out new videos, new podcasts. Because for whatever reason, just because you subscribe doesn't mean it necessarily tells you that I'm putting out new videos. So maybe hit the notification bell. But for now, that's all we've got. That's the end of the episode. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody that watches this podcast, and I'll talk to you soon.